Hello, everyone who's joining us a few minutes early. We will be getting started here just a few minutes. Zaki, if you're here, if you'd like to test your mic or come on stage. Hopefully you all can hear me okay. If you can hear me okay, please type in the chat. There's a chat window to your right, and you can chat to all of us or to just the hosts. Hopefully you all, okay, I see the chat. Hi, I see. Okay, great. You can hear me. Okay, good. All right, glad you all could join us today. We have a great webinar today on advanced Azure certifications, and we're just getting the last couple things ready for you all, and we will be with you shortly. Zaki, are you able to come on camera? Just bear with us another couple minutes. Hey, Zaki. Good to see you. How you doing? Good, good. I can hear you just fine. I hope everyone else can.
Awesome.
Let's see. All right. Just waiting for another few people to join us. If you'd like, type in the chat where you're joining us from. I'd love to see where everyone's listening in from. I'm in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. Oh, we've got Calgary. Let's see, Toronto, Canada. Oh, that's you, Zaki. Good. All right, Kansas City. Hi, Carrie. Hi, all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to get started. I'm Laura Hill. I'm with Cloud Institute, and we're a cloud coaching and training company. And we offer cloud certification, training, and cloud coaching to IT professionals. And we only teach skills you actually need in the workplace. So all of our trainings include hands-on challenge labs, so you can practice your skills as well as receive personalized coaching with cloud experts. So I don't want to take too much time from Zaki. I know he's got a lot of great information to share with you guys today, and we're going to try to keep it to 30 minutes. And today, Zaki's presenting on advanced Azure certifications. And just a little about Zaki, if you don't know him, he's a multi-cloud and data expert, a solutions architect, and a certified cloud instructor. He holds and maintains multiple Azure certifications and is very passionate about technology. I'm very excited that he could be here with us today. And just some housekeeping before we start. Like I said, we're going to keep it to 30 minutes, but feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and Zaki will get to them as he's able to. And you're welcome to either pose the questions or comments to the whole group, or you can send it to us privately, and we'll answer as we go along. And later today, you'll receive a link to the replay. So if you miss anything, don't worry. You can also download the slides. We'll be sharing that link towards the end. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Zaki.
Thank you so much, Laura. I hope I'm coming in. My audio and video is coming in loud and clear. Awesome. Thank you for the very kind introduction, Laura. Looks like we have Calgary and Kansas City. Oh, I would love to see that barbecue cook-off, So why don't we get straight into it? Our agenda. So this is actually part 2 of the 2-part Azure, Azure certification webinar that we have. So today we're going to be looking at more around the expert level certifications and specialty level certifications. If you're coming in for the first time, do check out our our first webinar last week. We have a recorded replay as well. Lara will make sure we get that at the end of the of our webinar here, in case you missed it. But that covers sort of the more fundamental and associate level certifications, sort of intermediate level certifications, and so on. So, let's do a quick recap of why Azure certifications. I think for a lot of folks, it's really about, if you're looking to move to a high-paying cloud career, and you want to upgrade your existing cloud skills, then Microsoft Azure certifications are a great choice. In fact, a lot of folks say that it's basically Azure plus one more cloud vendor, right? That'll make you sort of the all-rounder, right? And so Microsoft actually has done a couple of things in the last few years. They made some smart moves, and they basically played to their unique strength, right? So as everyone knows, Microsoft is embedded in a lot of organizations already. And in fact, that actually helps. So for a lot of organizations, Azure Cloud is actually their first foray into cloud. And so this actually presents great opportunity for folks that are getting certified on Azure skills, right? So it could be your organization today uses Azure, or maybe you are looking to become a multi-cloud expert, and you have that, let's catch them all, let's collect them all to flex your certification, all well-roundedness. And maybe it's also a good step if you want to make Bill Gates your best friend, right? Just saying. One interesting survey data point is that according to Flexera 2021 State of Cloud survey, Azure adoption is actually increasing in most enterprises, while AWS adoption remains relatively flat. So that's just, again, an interesting data point. I mean, I work on AWS and Azure and GCP on a daily basis. I'm sort of cloud agnostic, but there are definitely some things that I love about Azure. One of the things is that Azure was one of the first certs to be obtained remotely during the pandemic time. And at the same time, Microsoft has actually made some broad changes where now Azure certs are free to renew indefinitely. So that's basically a great user-facing option that Azure has done from day one. And so just want to get straight into some of the certifications that we see. Basically, Azure certifications are basically of 4 levels. You've got fundamentals, associate, expert, and specialty, right? And so what does this mean? So fundamentals and associate we covered last week. Fundamentals mostly for beginners, and none of them really require any higher Azure certifications. In fact, they're a starting point, and they're meant for both technical and non-technical folks. Then you have your associate, where you know your way around Azure a bit, starting to get comfortable, and you're working in a team, a tech team, and it will help you gain sort of the expertise on the different Azure services and so on. So today we're going to be diving into more expert level and specialty. Expert is mostly around, you now have gone through fundamentals associate, at least have one of those certifications, and you can now jump into something more, with more serious technical chops. And specialty is more, very specific. It's not really a cert, it's more like just validating your experience in that. So again, we're going to run through all of these fairly quickly today, because there's a lot to cover in our 30-minute window. But again, if there's something we haven't covered, please do let us know in the comments, in the chat, and so on. And for some of you, you've answered the poll question. When do you plan to earn an advanced Azure certification? That's really a great tool. Maybe you can even paste in the chat maybe some of the certs that you're interested in, and I can double click into that as we go through some of them as well. So let's jump in into this is sort of the high level architecture fundamentals and associates. So we're covering that today. And within that, there's a few expert certifications and a few specialty certifications. It is not as broad as it was last week's webinar, where we covered fundamentals and associate. So I'll be spending a little more time double clicking into these, if that's okay with you guys. So, and then basically there's a common certification plat. You start at the fundamentals, work through associate, get to the expert level. Now, quick note, the numbering scheme is kind of not intuitive, right? In Azure, they start everything at 900. So a 900 level course is actually fundamental, so they count backwards, right? So then, associates are typically, 400, 500, 300, and then some of the expert level will probably be 300, 400, and even 100, right? As we'll see in other domains. I only covered a few of these here just to show you. So let's jump in. The first one is probably a really popular one. This cert really pursues, it's the Azure Solutions Architect AZ305. This solution basically, proves that you're one of the Azure elite. You've got the proven prowess in across compute, network, storage, and security that's really needed to masterfully design any cloud solution or hybrid cloud solution to run on Azure, right? Now, some of the requirements, hard requirements, is obviously you need to have the AZ-104, which is the Azure Administrator, in the bag before taking this certification. And this is a very demanding certification. I would say that this certification, even prior, the name AZ-305 is actually this certification used to be two different certifications. It was AZ-303 and AZ-304. So you actually had to do two of these, and it was just recently unified in March of this year. So now they made it really easy. It's just one certification, but if anything, they've added all that same content from 303 and 304 into this certification. So some of the things you'd cover, some things like, how do you manage the Azure Active Directory, the cloud migration to Azure strategy, to the type of Azure strategy that you want to deploy, whether it's a complete migration, it's a phased migration, it's hybrid, and all the flavors in between, right? So, and then how do you leverage some of the serverless compute in there, Azure Functions, all of those good stuff, and how do you even integrate with on-premise infrastructure, looking at the network, ExpressNet, and all of those components as well as understanding how the container orchestration works, right, with Kubernetes, AKS, and so on. So it's a very broad as well as deep certification. It definitely tests you on it. I would say, who's it really for, right? It's really for experienced IT and DevOps pros who've already been working on Azure administration and development over a period of time. And basically, the solutions architect is basically the person who is a day walker, right? He can work effortlessly with any cutting edge technology, as well as working with the team, right? So they're capable of taking technical tasks like creating apps, doing cloud infrastructure, planning continuity, all of those things, but then also helping out other team members and so on. So this is a really, really, it's sort of a, all-rounder, right? So if you guys play basketball, for my basketball fans out there, the triple threat. You know how to pass, you know how to score, you know how to defend, and so on. So and rebound, right? So that's basically it. So another soccer analogy is if you're a midfielder, you can play all positions. So, um, and what's interesting about this is that you have to have in-depth understanding of Azure. And I would say this is for a lot of folks coming in. Um, you know, it's basically, you have the encyclopedic knowledge of IT, right? All these IT insights, and so on. And it's really the one that you'll see coming up with like the salary search. In any salary search coming up online from salary.com, from ZipRecruiter, or any other sources out there, you'll see there's always like, it's on the high end of the range, right? So it's about, it's about 150K USD. That's sort of the median based on current market research. So this is really, one of the pinnacle of Azure certs out there. So it's really, I would say it's a great place that you could, get to, right? And once you're here, you would definitely take my place to teach this webinar or the next time around. So awesome. The next one is my personal favorite, DevOps Engineer Expert. So the DevOps Engineer Expert, or AZ400, this is basically DevOps engineer who is sort of the conductor or the maestro of, take your pick, whether it's a train or orchestra, right? Who can basically ensure all the many different moving pieces in software development, leveraging a DevOps paradigm in modern organizations are performed using the right type of Azure tech, right? So it's basically a combination of having the right type of strategic mindset, deep understanding of all the development and infrastructure pieces and how they interplay within each other, right? So AZ400, again, you probably will need your AZ104 Microsoft Azure Administrator, or your AZ204, which is your DevOps specialty, or your Azure developer associate certification for that, right? So either or will work. A lot of the things that's covered here is mostly around, how do you build that kind of instrumentation? How do you build that kind of, dashboard, that kind of, planning it out for all the different team members, and then building the security, compliance, and continuity pieces, ensuring there's the right type of source control, as well as the right type of CI/CD infrastructure, continuous integration, continuous deployment infrastructure, because that's sort of becoming the prevalent way of developing software now, as opposed to waterfall methodologies out there. So for some that are agile scrum masters, this is really a great certification to put under your tool belt. At the same time, you'll be looking at how to really optimize a cloud hosting infrastructure, and to capture any kind of feedback back to the infrastructure. So a lot of times, DevOps engineers, this is sort of a senior DevOps engineer role. I would say that's what it is. So for those, when you are a senior DevOps engineer, you're equal parts both coder, people person, and basically a pro level cat wrangler, right? So you're already familiar with the Azure administration and development, and you're probably an expert in one, and very well versed in agile development practices, right? So this is really for those who want a really high paying DevOps gig that's heavy on strategy without completely being removed from the fulfillment of digging on the day-to-day to-do task. And that's why I like it. It's a bit of both, a bit of business, a bit of technical, deeper. So it's really nice. There's never a boring day. So again, this DevOps certification will give you that sort of validation that you can tackle the trifecta of people, processes, and tech, right? To help meet business requirements and objectives, as well as user needs, right? So again, a great type of certification. I highly recommend to check it out. Um, so those were sort of the big pieces around, you had the cloud certificate architect as well as the DevOps. Now we go into some of the specialty certifications, right? And so Microsoft is actually really interesting. They're actually one of the first cloud IoT. This is one of the first cloud IoT developer certifications in the market, right? From the big three cloud providers. And I've been sort of, been involved with IoT for almost 12 years, even before it was called IoT. It's called M2M. So anyway, so the Azure IoT developer certification says it all. Is basically how do you deploy an Azure services, that form part of an IoT solution, right? So again, obviously no official prerequisites, but you need to understand sort of the ins and outs of an IoT solution already. Be fluent in one of the Azure supported languages, whether it be C Sharp, which is Microsoft Java, or Node, or C, or Python, right? These are sort of the common ones. If you're already working in IoT, you'd be using one of those anyway, right? So some of the things that look at the skills that are being tested are how do you implement an IoT solution from an infrastructure and security. It's really interesting because a lot of IoT is hard at the beginning when you try to instrument the device or the thing to generate data, and then at the end, when you have the data, now how do you draw inference from it, insights from it, actionable intelligence from it, and so on. So that's sort of the bottom and the top end. And so Azure comes in both sides, right, to help out. So at the bottom, how do you provision and manage those devices? How do you set up and configure the IoT edge device so it's collecting data? Once you get the data, now going up to the cloud, how you process and manage that data. And obviously there will be things like troubleshooting, optimizing, managing, and maintaining and sustaining that type of IoT solution on Azure. It's mostly for IoT, Azure Fluent developers that are looking to get into IoT, or IoT devs looking to get into Azure, right? So those are some of the examples. So anyway, again, these are some of the skills that I would say. Again, it's really meant for an Azure savvy developer who wants to develop Azure services in terms of an IoT solution, right? This includes data analysis, data processing, data storage options. I highly recommend to go through AZ900 and DP900 and AI 900, because those are sort of the fundamental data and AI courses respectively. They have some great content there that can also help with with the exam, right? Particularly there's some concepts around data and AI, well, mostly around data that do come up in the exam around this. So it is kind of an interesting exam. Next up is for my friends working in SAP, right? You have the Azure for SAP Workloads specialty, right? So this is basically one of the newer Azure certifications. So this certification is really for people in the weeds of planning and administering SAP workloads to be hosted in Microsoft Azure, right? So it's not really mandatory, but it's really strongly recommended that you have at least an AZ-104 certificate or AZ-305 or some other, as well as some SAP HANA and Linux certs, right? Because there will be some configuration pieces. Obviously, we assume you've been working on SAP in an on-premise environment, right? So now the question is, how do you take that on-premise SAP workload and move it to Azure? How do you design those solutions to support those SAP workloads? And then building, deploying, setting up the infrastructure, and then optimizing it overall for performance, right? So again, really great certification. It's really for administrators, architects, and engineers who are migrating SAP solutions to the cloud. They're sort of moving forward and so on. So this is really, SAP is really important, as I found out. It's actually an interesting statistic that it's actually in a lot of majority of Fortune 500 companies. And if your organization has it, and you're thinking about, hey, how do I move our on-premise SAP workload to the Azure cloud? This is a great course to really begin with, right? So that's what this, again, we're assuming you have the knowledge of SAP and experience. Now you want to couple that with how to do it within Azure, right? And Azure has some interesting things around that. And a lot of times, a lot of folks taking this course, from what I've heard, is it's a lot of folks who want to create a sandbox environment, like an MVP of doing this. And so they want to get that quick hands-on. This course is probably the best course for that, to get your feet wet on that. And then next up is our Azure Virtual Desktop specialty, which is AZ140, right? And this one is mostly around sort of, it's basically, how do I do, basically it's for Azure admins who look after the desktop environment, right? Basically, who have experience in planning, delivering, and managing virtual desktops and remote apps in Azure. As we know, virtual desktop is everywhere. Everybody's bring your own device, right? And that bring your own device, BYOD, could eventually become BYOD, bring your own disaster, if we're not careful on how to manage this. So AZ140 is a great course. Microsoft calls out candidates that you must have expert administration skills, although there's no hard prerequisite, but I always recommend folks to do the AZ104 as an example before they attempt to do this, right? So it gives you that sort of, and it's funny, that's AZ104, which is sort of the signature or flagship administrator or intermediate Azure cert. From that, you can jump off to any of these specialty certs. So that's probably the best way to look at all these specialty certs as an example. So who's it really good for? It's really for, it's really a candidate if you are a administrator who has hands-on experience and you work day to day on the planning, delivering, and managing of virtual desktops and remote apps in your environment, or you want to get there. So that's really what it is. In fact, a lot of migration to Azure will require, understanding what the on-premise virtual desktop infrastructure is and how you can migrate to the Azure virtual desktop solution, right? So this is really the course that will give you that. You will get hands-on practice with the Azure portal, with Azure Resource Manager templates, and really bonus if you want to learn to really automate this using PowerShell and Azure Command Line Interface, or CLI, this is the course for you. Any other questions? I don't see any. Okay. This next one is very interesting, and I kind of have to explain what is Cosmos DB first before I explain why there's a cert. So most databases are either both, it's a lot of you probably already know, there's relational databases and non-relational, right? Or NoSQL or SQL databases, right? And over time, companies ended up having two of these database types in the organization. And then they said, hey, let's bring in a graph database as well, and all these other databases. And so, this type of database persistence technologies were basically sprawling. And so a lot of, a lot of solutions came to market, which are called multimodal databases. What that means is it's a database that can also handle relational data and also handle non-relational data. So both SQL and non-SQL workloads as well. So these multimodal databases, there's a few of them. There's Cassandra. There's ArangoDB. There's a few, and but CosmoDB was one of the first and foremost. Is actually my favorite database to use. The only thing is it's expensive, so so just beware. But it is the best thing since sliced bread. It can, if you want a database that can hold, globally available, 5 nines availability, quick replication, and you don't have to worry about any of the sharding, partitioning stuff that a typical database admin has to worry about. Cosmos DB is one that you can do. It's a lot of things. It's a multimodal database, can do many things. It's basically one of the most powerful things within the Azure ecosystem in terms of database. There are very few multimodal databases that work well. I worked for a retailer recently, and very large retailer, like probably top 10, top 5 retailer on the planet. And they've been using Cosmos DB, and it's been spectacular. So I got to see behind the scenes some of the things. Anyway, so getting back with Cosmos DB, it's one of my favorites. It's Azure certifications to, because again, Cosmos DB is one of my favorite services on Azure, as you can tell why. So um, and so basically, Cosmos DB lets you focus on the good stuff, right? So this is actually a really proper specialty exam that goes really in depth. If you're definitely using Cosmos DB from almost all your database workloads and so on. Again, there's no prerequisite, although I highly recommend that folks do DP 300 or DP 203, sorry, as a prerequisite. So, the path to get to this would be you do DP 900, then you do DP 203, which is an associate level, and then you do this one, which is easy. So this is actually, it says specialty, but it's actually specialty plus expert, I would say. This is so some of the skills that you would look at is, how do you use non-relational data models with Azure Cosmos DB Core API? How do you do the partitioning strategies if you want to, or you can just let them Azure deal with it by default. You can even do some of the scaling and sizing, connectivity operations, right? Cosmos DB has its own set of, our units of measurement, right? Synthetic measurements. How do you build different types of consistencies, right? So there's strong consistency to weak consistency models. You can choose about 5 of them. How do you handle pagination, store procedures, all of those good things. There's replication strategies that you can automate and switch on. So that means from a business continuity perspective, you set it and forget it. And then basically, if there's different regions within Azure, and if you've configured that kind of multi-region environment, it will, you'll be able to go through all of it. So we'll take care of all that. Again, this is really for candidates who are experts at designing, implementing, monitoring cloud native applications that want to store and manage that data, right? And want to leverage Cosmos DB as the tool. So this is really, really the best of the best, and so on. So it's kind of their flagship multimodal database within Azure. Last but not least is the Azure support engineer for connectivity, right? In another lifetime, I had a CCIE from the Cisco ecosystem in networking. So this is the equivalent of that. So this is new Azure cert again. It's really for networking superstars. It's who are adept at planning, implementing, and maintaining the network type of solutions, whether it be on hybrid solutions or cloud solutions. So you want to really know what's wrong, what's broken, and so on. So some of you that have a network engineering background or network admin background, this is really the course for you. Again, no hard prerequisite, although I definitely, will suggest that you take the AZ 104 and then attempt this. And so this really dives into break fix mostly, right? So how do you troubleshoot business continuity issues? How do you diagnose and fix hybrid and cloud connectivity? Anything with virtual networks, DNS, VPNs, express routes, and so on, for both hybrid and cloud solutions, as well as all these other things. So it's really for engineers who want to develop that kind of advanced networking, troubleshooting, um, expertise and acumen, right? And it's especially great for hybrid environments. So, so again, this is a very new certification announced this year. So again, very extremely valuable if you want to have a very senior level skill set. And I would say, a lot of folks coming into specialty, the path that I've seen that's being successful is doing the associate level, then doing the expert, and then doing the specialty. Or you can go, if you really want to go, you can go from associate to specialty and so on. So that's probably another path as well. So with that, I pass it off back to Lara here.
Great. Thank you so much, Zaki. This has been such good information. And I just wanted to offer a few options that we have at Cloud Institute for supporting you on this journey of Azure certification. I'll share in the chat a link to our labs, our challenge labs. We have over 300 Azure Challenge Labs that you can take and practice, and that way you can improve your skills. And so that's a great option for, there's different labs for different levels of expertise there. And another great offer that we have just for our webinar participants, we have a special right now where we are going to be, I'm going to share in the chat a link to this as well. We actually are offering 50% off our boot camp. So hopefully you can see these links. You can see that code bootcamp50. That'll give you 50% off of our Azure certification bootcamp, which includes 2 hours of one-on-one coaching with an Azure expert. So that's a really great option too. And of course, if you have any questions about these, please do reach out to us at Cloud Institute. We're happy to help you. And yeah, if there's no other questions for Zaki, I don't see any here in the chat. Feel free to reach out to us after the webinar is over. Like I said, you'll be receiving a link to the recording, as well as I had posted a link in the chat to the slide deck. If you'd like to download the slides, you're welcome to do that as well. We really appreciate your time and attention today, and thanks for joining us. Hope you have a good rest of the day.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.